It was a disaster so bizarre, so unimaginable, that it sounds like a tall tale. But in January 1919, a massive tank of molasses burst in Boston's North End, unleashing a wave of sticky destruction that claimed lives and left the city in shock. This is the strange but true story of the Great Molasses Flood. The North End of Boston was a vibrant, densely populated neighborhood in the early 1900s, home to many Italian immigrants and bustling with activity. The streets were alive with the sounds of vendors calling out their wares, children playing, and families going about their daily lives. This area was a melting pot of cultures, with Italian traditions blending seamlessly into the American way of life. The aroma of freshly baked bread and simmering tomato sauce wafted through the air, creating a sense of community and belonging among the residents. Towering over this neighborhood was a 50-foot-tall steel tank, holding over 2 million gallons of molasses. This massive structure was an imposing sight, casting a long shadow over the narrow streets and tenement buildings below. The tank was a symbol of industrial progress and the booming economy of the time, but it also loomed as a constant reminder of the potential dangers that came with such advancements. Built by the Purity Distilling Company, the tank was used to store molasses for the production of industrial alcohol, a crucial ingredient in munitions manufacturing during World War I. The molasses was shipped in from the Caribbean and stored in the tank before being transported to various distilleries. This process was vital to the war effort, as industrial alcohol was used to produce explosives and other munitions. The tank represented both the ingenuity and the risks of the industrial age, standing as a testament to the era's technological advancements. But as the war ended, the contents of this tank would soon cause one of the most bizarre disasters in American history. On a cold January day in 1919, the tank burst, releasing a tidal wave of molasses that swept through the streets of the North End. The thick, sticky substance engulfed everything in its path, causing widespread destruction and loss of life. This unexpected catastrophe left a lasting impact on the community and became a cautionary tale about the unforeseen consequences of industrialization. The Great Molasses Flood, as it came to be known, remains a poignant reminder of the delicate balance between progress and safety. On January 15, 1919, at around 12:30 p.m., the molasses tank suddenly and catastrophically failed. It was an ordinary winter day in Boston, with the city bustling with activity. People were going about their daily routines, unaware of the impending disaster that would soon unfold. With a deafening roar, the steel walls of the tank split open, releasing a massive wave of molasses that reached speeds of up to 35 miles per hour. The tank, which had been holding over 2 million gallons of molasses, could no longer contain the pressure. The sound of the rupture echoed through the streets, causing panic and confusion among the residents. The wave, some 25 feet high at its peak, swept through the streets, flattening buildings, overturning vehicles, and trapping anyone in its path. The thick, sticky molasses moved with an unstoppable force, engulfing everything in its way. People tried to run, but the molasses was too fast. Horses and carts were swept away, and entire buildings were reduced to rubble. The sheer force of the flood was devastating. 21 people lost their lives, and over 150 were injured in the chaos that followed. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, but the molasses made rescue efforts incredibly difficult. The sticky substance trapped victims, making it nearly impossible to pull them to safety. The aftermath was a scene of utter devastation, with debris and molasses covering the streets. The community was left in shock, mourning the loss of life and grappling with the scale of the disaster. The Great Molasses Flood, as it came to be known, would be remembered as one of the most bizarre and tragic events in Boston's history. The aftermath of the disaster was nothing short of horrific. The molasses hardened in the cold January air, making rescue efforts slow and arduous. Entire city blocks were coated in a thick, sticky residue that took weeks to clean up. The molasses had seeped into every crevice, clogging the streets, and even washing into Boston Harbor. The disaster left a lasting mark on the city, both physically, with damage that took years to repair, and emotionally, as the residents of the North End struggled to make sense of the tragedy. The catastrophe sparked one of the first major class action lawsuits in United States history. This lawsuit was not just a legal battle. It was a fight for justice for the countless victims who had suffered due to corporate negligence. The sheer scale of the disaster, combined with the public outcry, made it clear that this was a case that would be remembered for generations. The investigation revealed that the tank had been hastily constructed with substandard materials. Engineers and experts who examined the remains of the tank were shocked at the poor quality of the construction. The steel used was too thin, the rivets were improperly installed, and the overall design was flawed. It was a disaster waiting to happen, and the company had cut corners to save costs, putting profits over people, and that the Purity Distilling Company had ignored signs of weakness and leaks in the tank. Workers had reported strange noises and visible leaks, but their concerns were dismissed. The company was more focused on maintaining production levels than ensuring the safety of their equipment. This blatant disregard for safety protocols was a ticking time bomb that eventually exploded, causing unimaginable devastation. The company attempted to blame anarchists for sabotaging the tank, a common scapegoat during that era of political unrest. They claimed that the tank had been deliberately damaged to cause chaos and destruction. However, this theory quickly fell apart under scrutiny. The evidence did not support the idea of sabotage, and it became clear that the real culprit was the company's own negligence. But the evidence pointed to negligence. Detailed investigations and expert testimonies revealed a pattern of cost-cutting and disregard for safety. The courtroom was filled with emotional testimonies from victims and their families, painting a vivid picture of the human cost of the disaster. The jury was moved by the overwhelming evidence and the heart-wrenching stories of loss and suffering. After years of legal battles, the company was found liable and ordered to pay substantial damages to the victims and their families. The verdict was a landmark decision, sending a strong message to corporations about the importance of safety and accountability. The compensation provided some relief to the affected families, but no amount of money could truly make up for the lives lost and the trauma endured. This case set a precedent for corporate accountability and safety standards that would have far-reaching consequences. It led to stricter regulations and more rigorous inspections of industrial equipment. The lessons learned from this tragedy helped shape modern safety standards, ensuring that such a disaster would never happen again. The legacy of this case is a testament to the power of the legal system to bring about change and protect the public from corporate greed. Today, the Great Molasses Flood is a largely forgotten chapter in American history, but its legacy lives on. The disaster led to stricter building regulations and safety standards that have undoubtedly saved countless lives in the years since. In Boston's North End, a plaque commemorates the victims of the flood, serving as a reminder of the day when molasses turned deadly. Though it may seem like an outlandish tale, the Great Molasses Flood is a powerful example of how negligence can lead to unexpected and tragic consequences. The Great Molasses Flood may sound like something out of fiction, but it was all too real for the people of Boston in 1919. A century later, the story remains a cautionary tale about the importance of safety, oversight, and accountability. What do you think of this bizarre disaster? Let us know in the comments below.